Welcome to the Pipeline of People podcast powered by Versorix, the show where boutique firm leaders trade less admin for more advisory. Each week, we share actionable tactics to keep your client pipeline full and your team performing at its best. I'm your host, Jaden Parisi. Let's dive in. Today's guest is Jerry Briggs, owner and CEO of Apex CX, a global customer experience company helping contrast centers across industries go sustainably through smarter systems, BPO strategies, and deeply human service design. Jerry, welcome. Could you kick us off with a quick look at your background and, what led you to Apex?
Uh, Thanks, Jaden, and sure, happy to tell a little bit. I appreciate you inviting me, and look forward to our conversation.
Of course.
So my background is entirely in the consulting space. I spent 30 years at Accenture and its predecessor organizations. I started there in the mid 80s and was there through the mid 2010s, at which time I retired from there as a partner and took a role at a federal contractor, small or not small federal contractor, a large federal contractor called CACI, which is pretty much a pure play federal government contracting organization. I had done federal work near the end of my career at Accenture, and so it was sort of a natural progression when I retired from Accenture to go there. Spent about 8 years there, uh, doing a lot of enterprise IT work, and most of my time at Accenture had also been in the IT space. So I had a strong background in consulting and in IT in particular. And when I left CACI, I wasn't ready to sort of call it a day. So I looked around for some opportunities to potentially uh, join other organizations, and in the end, I discovered the possibility and ended up taking advantage of the opportunity to acquire a company myself. In fact, I acquired two companies. One was called SK Weston and Company, who that had been founded by a gentleman named Steve Weston, who is still part of the organization Apex CX, and then a company called the Taylor Reach Group, which is based in Ontario and was started by a gentleman named Colin Taylor. So I acquired those two companies. Colin subsequently chose to retire. Steve has stayed with us, and then I merged those together and created Apex CX. We've been in existence now as Apex CX for a little less than 2 years and are enjoying all of the things about being a small company or a smaller company, of establishing a new brand, getting the brand identity out there, and generating opportunities and capabilities for providing to our clients, and generating new clients as well.
That's amazing. Quite the impressive background.
Yeah, thanks.
Federal contracting and, I'm not sure what you did at Accenture, but it seems a little bit different than customer experience. Like, how did you get into that specifically?
Into the federal,
No, into
into
customer
CX.
experience. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So there is some difference, but you'd be surprised, particularly in many of the civilian agencies of the federal government. There's a lot of contact center work. It just happens to be all U.S. based, and in many cases, government employee based. But there are also contractors who do that kind of work, as well as IT help desk work for, pretty much everyone, including DoD and all of the other major departments. So there was some of that in my background at CACI and even some at Accenture. But the fact of the matter is I found SK Weston by the fact that geographically it's nearby as much as anything. I was in fact looking to possibly acquire something in the federal space since I knew that most recently the best, and came across the CX opportunity with SK Weston, and it seemed like uh, it was tangential, but it wasn't, starting from scratch. And so much of the work that we do is actually very similar to management consulting work, regardless of the industry, regardless of what services are being provided. At the end of the day, management consulting is very similar across everything. And so it felt very familiar. Steve Weston and I hit it off very, very well. And so I took the leap. And certainly I've had a learning curve overseeing this, but I have some very strong people on my team who have educated me quickly, and they're tolerant of the fact that I still need reminders here and there.
That's great. So when we had our, kind of initial discussion about having you on this podcast, I
Yeah,
had reached out asking you to kind of discuss the topic of niching, and you kind of wanted to take a different approach, which I appreciate. So what we're going to kind of go over today is, how service overload affects delivery, brand credibility, the real costs of trying to offer everything, how you decided to do this, and kind of your advice for other leaders who
sure.
want to focus on kind of a similar approach.
Yep.
So, when you describe what Apex CX does for clients, what do you emphasize most?
So it's I call it full life cycle, which is a term you borrow from the IT industry. Full life cycle consulting, meaning we do the upfront work with a client where they are either interested in advancing the ball, or they're maybe behind the curve a little bit against their competitors, and they realize that their customer experience is not where they want it to be. And so if they approach us, or if we happen to approach them and at the right time, they can engage us all the way at the point of assessing what they have today. So we typically like to actually go in, do some form of an assessment, figure out what they do well, where there may be gaps, where they may need some technology help, and then make recommendations on those of initiatives that they can undertake that will raise the bar on their capabilities. And those can be technology related, they can be business process related. There are organizational changes sometimes, which are all very normal things you see when you're doing consulting work and advisory work to companies that are looking to be at the top of their industry. And so we will make those recommendations. If they like the work we've done, they'll bring us forward into the next phase, which is implementation of some of those recommendations. And we do many different things in that regard, where we'll do the process redesign work. We will make recommendations of the technology to be implemented. We have technology partners that actually do the technology delivery. We don't have that skill set in-house, something that maybe someday we'll go into, but right now we leverage business partners to do the technology implementations, and then we will operate it if they want us to, and we'll basically run a managed service for the client if that's what they desire. So that's why I call it full life cycle. It's all the way from assessment and recommendations, implementing the recommendations, and then operating the new business in its new capabilities in the CX space, and uh, seeing the results, seeing the benefits of that effort and that investment that the client has made.
Yeah, that's great, and I can definitely tell that you were a consultant, current state, future state. Um,
Yeah, it's all very similar.
yeah, for sure. Was there a turning point when you kind of realized like the key to growth isn't, adding more services or offering everything under the sun? Let's just kind of stick to this process.
Well, so interestingly enough, since I've acquired the company, of course, we've seen a couple of things in the global economy that have caused some challenges for the likes of Apex CX and our similar businesses around any industry. If you do management consulting work right now, you find yourself with clients that are a little more reluctant to spend on what they might consider to be uh, discretionary services. It's not essential to run their business. You know, if you build widgets, raw materials, equipment, employees, inventory, those are the investments you can't avoid. But having somebody come in and tell you how to improve things, that's a discretionary spend. You can kick it down the road and muddle through, especially if all of the players in your industry are doing the same thing. It's sort of an easier thing to delay. And so, because of that, we found ourselves wanting to expand what we do, and we have expanded some of the things we do. For example, we have an M&A practice where we provide uh, advice on companies to acquire. We'll be approached by a company saying, a hypothetical would be, hey, we'd like to bring in-house our contact center work. And today we outsource that overseas, but we'd like to bring it in-house. Is there a company we could acquire that could bring that for us? And vice versa happens, where companies are looking to sort of spin it off, if you will, and give it to someone who's a pure play customer experience business process outsourcing type of company. Either direction, we will recommend to them who the buyer might be, who the seller might be. We will make those connections. We will provide due diligence efforts for it, and then we'll help with the integration once the acquisition has been made. So that's an example of something that was starting to happen prior to me buying the company, but we've made a much bigger push into it now, and it's becoming more of our bread and butter. Another example very quickly would be um, we have found that with the BPO companies, the companies offshore in many cases that are trying to sell their services to US based companies, they're struggling to gain a foothold in the US market. And so they approach us and ask us, hey, can you help us build a presence in the US? And so we help them with a go-to-market strategy. We help them with marketing, and we advise them on all of that. And again, we can take it on and do it ourselves. But in many cases, they have a marketing department, they have salespeople. They just need some help with those people getting uh, set in the right direction so that they can generate more leads, particularly in a US market where they may be underpenetrated. So those are examples of things where we've had them, but we've expanded our footprint in those areas because we've been looking to generate enough demand. However, one of the things that I've seen, and I saw it a lot in my prior experience, and I'm trying to avoid here, is if you try to go for too many of those new spaces, it can become a very limiting thing because you have finite resources. And in particular, if you're talking about a situation like I've described over the last couple of years, where uh, you have a limited number of new clients coming in right now, and so choosing to spread your resources more thinly to generate more demand is an awfully difficult thing to do, because then you're taking your eye off your bread and butter. You're taking your finite, limited resources, however good they may be, and asking them to add new dimensions to what they're going after. And so we've found, um, again, I found it both in the past, but in what we're doing here, that it's best if we stick to the core capabilities and just look for within that what's resonating and what may not be resonating at this time. So, for example, we're doing more assessment work right now and not as much implementation and managed services, because companies are wanting to get moving forward, but they don't really quite yet know what they want to do, and they certainly aren't ready to make a large investment in implementing a new capability, but they would like to know where they should be going, where to skate to where the puck's going to be. And one really big example, which we've been doing a lot of advice on of late, is artificial intelligence and its impact on CX. Um, as is in our tagline, experience humanity, we are big believers through our experiences with numerous clients and with numerous BPOs that trying to take humans out of the loop entirely is a pretty precarious thing. And while there are certainly ways to make it seem as though a customer is talking to a person and yet they're actually talking to an AI, for simple things that can work, but it can quickly get to the point where the complexity isn't able to be handled, and therefore you get kind of a disjointed or stilted experience for the customer. And the last thing you want to do with your customers is frustrate them.
Yeah.
The analogy in the old days is the wait time on the phone, right? Waiting for somebody to pick up the phone and talk to you. That's something that has been, for the most part, addressed through technology capabilities, et cetera. But in the case of AI now, it may not be that somebody's waiting on hold, but instead they're getting sort of the treatment that we all used to get frustrated with when we'd call about our laptop, and somebody'd say, well, is it plugged in? They were going through their script, and you get quickly frustrated with the level of simplicity that they're forcing you to go through. Some of the AI stuff can be that way as well. So we're advising a lot on how to use AI, and for different circumstances, different things work. But one of the things we've been very clear about is ignoring AI is a very dangerous prospect for people in the customer experience space, because it just means you're going to be left behind. But going all in with AI, or maybe going further with AI and leading your industry, your vertical in the AI space, also comes with risk associated with it, where bad customer experience can translate into lost sales or into lost repeat sales, et cetera. So um, we do find that advisory space is what we're seeing more of right now. And so, going back to your original question, where we spend our cycles then is on talking to clients about those possibilities and gaining their curiosity, and then working with them on those. Um, and then as things start to come back to a more robust state and implementations occur, and the follow-on operational parts occur, we'll start sorting through what we've been doing of late, and sort of separate the good and the bad, and focus on what's really resonating and what's generating excitement with our clients, so that we're not, again, not trying to boil the ocean, but rather focus on the areas that can produce the most interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously there's a whole ton of features that AI can do, and the calling it's getting better, but it's not there yet. I definitely agree with you on that point. Um, but things like workflow automations to kind of smooth out onboarding, or automated response or follow-up notifications for tasks and communication. Like it's very powerful. So are you using it any other way than that when you're advising your clients, or just kind of, can you
Well,
elaborate?
so what's really popular in the CX space right now is to um, put AI on the front end of the simpler things. Um, if somebody has a simple question, and AI can answer it, then that reduces the amount of workload on the employees that are taking the tougher calls, for example.
Yeah.
So um, that's a good thing. But the flip side of that is it's harder then for new employees to come up to speed because they're not answering those kinds of questions. Those are being answered by the AI. And so they have a different learning curve, not necessarily harder or easier, but different than what they would have had as they built their experience up. Which actually gets to another use of AI, which is as a companion on calls where the AI is listening to the conversation. It's able to assess tone of voice, um, uh, as well as from the content, make recommendations or give advice to the agent taking the call. So rather than offloading entire transactions to the AI becomes a coach in real time, providing suggestions that can, you know, be at the simplest level, a better way for the agent to be responsive to the customer. So a less experienced agent can actually address more complex questions because the AI is able to prop them up and give them help. It can also be a way to generate secondary sales because the AI can say, hey, think about upselling this based on what you've been talking about. This is something this client might have an interest in. So those are things that are sort of the trends in looking at AI. Um, it's still something where the software products out there, they are quickly getting so much better, and there are a few that are really, really strong at it. Um, but there's still a lot of sort of homegrown stuff out there as well. And so, just like any new technology, you get the homegrown, you get the stuff that's coming from the software vendors, and it's very uh, robust, but perhaps not as customizable or not as easy to make it work the way you really need it to work. And we'll see that converge just like any other technology in the past. We'll see that stuff come to where it reaches a new balance and it always is based on what the need is of the person buying the AI capability to be able to articulate to those supplying it what they really need. And so the combination of flexibility and customization balanced against not having to build it yourself and all of the costs associated with maintaining something like that. That's where AI will land, I think, in the near future. I can't predict when because I'm not close enough to it to say. There's certainly way more that AI will do beyond that, but that's a current trend we see still converging into uh, sort of a standard, if you will, that we're looking for, and hopefully we'll see in the next year or two.
Yeah, 100%. And the development in the AI space is insanely fast. Like 2, 3 years ago, nobody had even heard of ChatGPT.
Right,
So,
right.
but yeah, we got a few minutes left here, so that was great. Thank you for that. But let's move on to. I'm going to do a quick rapid fire section. So I have a few questions, just whatever's on the top of your head, to
Okay,
kind of close this out. Sound
okay.
good? All
Yep.
right. Biggest myth about full service boutique firms.
That they can't do what large firms can do.
Okay. One thing any CX firm leader should cut this week.
Ask that one again.
One thing any CX firm leader should cut this week.
An answer for that one.
Okay, that's fine. Um, Antique furniture or customer experience, which is harder to restore?
Customer experience. You've been reading the website.
Yeah, of course. And finally, what is the best piece of advice that you've been given, professional or personal?
The best I was ever given, it's a little off topic, but I'll share it because I thought it was profoundly impactful on me. Uh, and you can relate it to clients, customers, bosses, anything. If someone thinks you have a problem, whether you agree with them or not, you have a problem because unless, they're not going to spend the time to confirm or deny their problem. They're just going to assume you have a problem. So in this case, for me, it was It was a senior leader telling me when I was an up and comer that since I had a perception issue with another senior leader, uh, I had an issue. Whether I agreed that I had an issue or not was irrelevant. And I think it's a really, really important thing for everyone to understand, um, particularly with us all being so virtual, that impressions are made in a different way now and maybe even less apparent, that you need to understand if you've caused an issue, whether or not you agree it's an issue, it's yours to reconcile, not expect the other person to do their homework on something that they have no doubt about.
Absolutely. And I've been through that myself. But identifying the problems first step solving it. So that's great. Thank you. Really enjoyed that. Thanks again. This was incredibly insightful. Where can listeners, learn more about you or Apex or connect with you directly?
Yeah, so of course, Apex is apexcx.com. So simple, straightforward URL. If they want to talk to me, I'm on LinkedIn. Uh, Jerry Briggs, Apex CX. I don't know my exact uh, URL for that, but if you search Jerry Briggs and Apex CX, you'll find me. And they can even call my cell phone, which is 614-286-4580. And I am happy to take a call from anyone who wants to talk customer experience or management consulting in general.
Okay, amazing. If this episode sparked any ideas for you or someone on your team, pass it along. Until next time, I'm Jaden Parisi. This is the Pipeline and People podcast.